thought Arundel Gate to make a really interesting video. Now where I am would have been the hole in the road, and you can just see beyond that, you can see John Walsh's, Rackham's, House of Fraser. Fantastic departmental store. Now that was actually bombed in the war, so it was a lovely Victorian building before that. And then it was rebuilt in the 1956 this. Now I did a video of Arundel Gate last week, but I forgot to put the microphone in, so it wasn't very good sound quality, but I'm really glad I'm redoing the video because I've done some more investigation on it. I've looked at 1950s maps when Arundel Gate didn't exist. It was just where Arundel Gate starts here. It was just the start of Norfolk Street, which came up to Market Place. Now Norfolk Street went down to Union Street and then on to Porter Street. Now Porter Street ran down the back of the moor, but that's been erased from the maps. They actually widened the shops on the moor and Porter Street disappeared. You can see down Arundel Gate, but previously, when it didn't exist, you got Norfolk Street on the right hand side, and on the left hand side you got Pond Street. So I said, like, Norfolk Street went straight, this was actually Norfolk Street, and then it veers right, and then there was a hive of little streets all the way down the back of Fargate down to the moor, and they just blitzed that through after the Second World War and put this dual carriageway through. Now when we look at what they're doing at the moment in Sheffield, there's no real consultation, so I'm guessing that this dual carriageway crippled loads of little businesses, shops, and where people lived in Sheffield back in the 50s. It is a concrete jungle, but I thought it's an interesting place to show it you. All these shops around here would have been accessible from the hole in the road. People will get fed up with me mentioning hole in the road. I've been threatened for mentioning it. Don't know why. Now the thing is, when they put Arundel Gate through on the hole in the road, the area looked really tidy, modernistic, and now it looks a right awful mess around here. Across here there was a Fad's wallpaper shop. There was so I think about it, electronics shop, I can't remember the name, and where it said Select and Save, that was the old Claymore pub. If you want to get your bearings around here, there's Yorkshireman pub. Which I think was the rendezvous bar when I used to come in town. It used to be a meet-up place. You used to come out of Pond Street, have your first drink in here, then when you came back to Pond Street you'd have another drink in here. You can see the back of the Odeon Cinema there from Flat Street, and just here I've looked on an old picture from the 1970s and there was like a canopy over, so as you came up from Flat Street behind the Odeon Cinema, just there it was some sort of canopy over, so you could, like I said, you used to be able to pretty much walk in from the bus station to the hole in the road and keep dry under these shelters. But I was informed that at one bit, before they did all the developments of Pond Street, built the nightclub and Fiesta, there was actually like a ramp down with a rose garden. So this is very modernistic for Sheffield. It's not really the Sheffield. It's just like the rebuild they did after the war, and they'll have used war damage as the reason for doing a lot of it. And what we've seen is when they locked us down, they used emergency powers to block roads off. So what they're doing was, a lot of the time, take away your freedom and then they never give it you back. So right in front of us we've got Steely's nightclub. I'm trying to think what else it was. Top Rank, I'm not sure if it was Top Rank. Barry Noble's, Roxy. Yeah, I think it was Top Rank Suite. So that was supposed to be the biggest nightclub in Europe at one bit. Got a car park underneath it. And then here we're just turning on to Norfolk Street. As you can see, Norfolk Street now, this is how I think a lot of these roads around here would have been before they blitzed Arundel Gate through. I think they've been beautiful buildings like this. And you can see Norfolk Street would have actually come down here, straight down here. It would have probably been a single carriageway road in either direction down to Marketplace. And then beyond this area was a mishmash of little roads. And like I said, it must have been shops, little nesters, small businesses and housing just blitzed through. Now if you go down into Pond Street, you'll find it's not used anymore, and it's because they're charging so much for buses to use it. And I don't know if this has been put here on purpose, because none of the buses are using Pond Street now. So we've got an interchange now here, Arundel Gate interchange. Now I came in from Dinnington, it's 14 miles away, and it was, what was it, -1.5 on my thermometer, but it is a bit low, my thermometer, and by the time I got into Sheffield it was +1, so we've had less snow around here. Now this is one of the roads they're claiming that's polluted. In fact, I've just missed something here. Back end of the, I think it's a Crucible there. I remember first using that in 1974. I came to see Wizard of the Oz. Yeah, they're claiming that Haymarket and Arundel Gate are the most polluted roads in Sheffield. So if that's the case, then it's the buses that's polluting it, because there's very little car throughput on here. We've limited cars on here to buses. So the problem is, it sounds like the buses rather than the cars. Just here we've got the old Fiesta nightclub. It's now the Odeon Cinema complex. Not particularly nice in that cinema, I don't use it very often. But the old Fiesta was a place where the top acts came, like Tina Turner. I've probably said that wrong, that's probably before her time, sorry. Shirley Bassey, Tom Jones, people like that. We had the top events coming, and for some reason it pretty much shut down, I think, after the Crucible opened, and I can't understand why. It serves a different market, really. This is the back end of the Crucible. Then we've got the Lyceum up here. That takes you into Tudor Square. This is very a soulless 1984 sort of place. And what they did is they built these university buildings down here. You can get down into Pond Street from there. And they've been modernised, I think, since the 60s as well. But just imagine this would have been a hive of little roads. Not a dual carriageway, so they must have ruined this area a long time ago. So when we look back on our days of the 1960s as being great days, well, other people will have already seen the destruction of Sheffield, and that destruction carries on, and it's been carrying on all the way through lockdown. You can see new student accommodation in Pond Street on Flat Street. Absolute joke, really. Don't know why they need all this student accommodation. They just keep building more and more. We don't want Sheffield to be a big university city. City centre belongs to the people of Sheffield. We don't want it turning into a big university campus. Certainly not the Oxford or Cambridge with beautiful buildings. It's just 1984 monstrosities like this, and the access centre over there. How that can inspire you to learn, I don't know. So we're around the back of the library here, Central Library. One bit there was talk of that becoming a football museum, if I remember rightly. But one week Sheffield Council's doing one thing, and then the next week they're doing something completely different. But I really would love to time travel and see what this area was like before it was destroyed. So this would be Hallam University, which it says on there, which was a polytechnic when I was younger. People like me who didn't want to go and do a degree came to polytechnics and did HNCs and HNDs, and I think that was a far more effective way of educating people, because you got the real life experiences. So you've got Millennium Galleries here, which I think, yeah, it's very modernistic, but I ain't got an issue with it. It's got an escalator service up and takes you into the Winter Gardens. I tried to get in Sheffield yesterday and the roads were clear, and you can see Sheffield city centre's pretty clear, but the buses weren't running. Now this takes you down to the Midland station. It's Howard Street, and same again, there's 4 university buildings here, monstrosities that they're building. When were we ever asked whether they wanted to change our city centre into a university and urban living area? Now, they say that Meadowhall killed Sheffield city centre off. No, it didn't. Sheffield City Council did, with its intolerance of cars. There were loads of car parks as you came down the Parkway, big roundabout there, market area and everything, and loads of car parks, and basically they just shut it off to people, so people couldn't just drive into Sheffield and park like they used to. That's what killed Sheffield, not Meadowhall. It was Sheffield City Council. They must have had plans to urbanise Sheffield a long time ago, because these plans have probably been in the throes for 40 years, but it's been all kept quiet. Now that's the tallest building in Sheffield, that's St Paul's Tower, residential. Now wouldn't it be nice if it was actually something that was it's not a particularly nice building, but like, for example, if there was a big restaurant on the top and the general public could get in and go in the restaurant and view Sheffield from up there. But no, that's just for your rich elite who live in Sheffield. It's just suck people in from the university. They tend to stay here once they've come, but they don't want the same city as what we want. But Howard Street's pretty much destroyed now. And then just behind the tallest building, St Paul's, is a car park, and that got some sort of reward. But you can just imagine the culture that was destroyed around here. And if you look down here, this is all like probably university accommodation, and when I came the other week and I was filming it, I felt really old walking around here. I felt as though I was in the middle of a university campus. That's St Paul's Tower. But when you look at the old, if you look at the old pictures of Peace Gardens and you look to Norfolk Street at the back, you'll see lots of buildings that's disappeared in Sheffield from the 1950s. A beautiful church called St Paul's. That's what this tower gets its name after, and St Paul's was knocked down in 1945. Could have been incorporated into other things, but they just decided to knock it down, destroy more culture. But these are all new university buildings, if I can remember. It's always been soulless down Arundel Gate, but it's even more soulless now. If you want to live your life in a digital prison, you're fine down here, but this isn't Sheffield. So after the war, the planners decided to bring this dual carriageway all the way down here, sort of running down the same length as the moor and, sorry, not the moor, sorry, Fargate and Pinston Street, and then they carried it on right down the moor on Eyre Street. So we've got a big building here called Derwent House, and we've got an old pub here, but this is not the original pub either, the Roebuck Tavern. It's half original and half it's been built on. But if you can imagine, this is how this area would have looked with pubs like this and shops and houses and various things. It would have been really quaint, to tell you the truth. Yeah, it wanted probably cleaning up and people having decent bathrooms inside, but you know, why just knock everything down and just build these monstrosities? So somewhere up there, Union Street would come through, and then a bit further along, as you get to the moor, you'd have Porter Street, and Porter Street is sort of running down, I think, where Redgate's was, ish, and then that street's been blocked off and all shops have been built on that street. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think I'm right. You can see the car park that got the award. I don't like it, but it's a fact. St Paul's Tower. And this building on the left is the only bit of building left around here like this. Like I said, this has been the sorts of buildings around here. You've got a cobble street down here. If you look at this lot, it would have been a mishmash of roads like this, with the buildings, businesses. Could have been made really nice. Could have re-roofed it. Could have put internal bathrooms in, but no, we'll just destroy it and So we're now at the bottom of Arundel Gate, and then I'll take you across to Eyre Street. Even though it's warmer, it's still freezing, to tell you the truth. So there you can see a modern white building. The first half of it was the Red Gates toy shop, because that's on Moorhead. The Red Gates toy shop looked very much like this, but it was probably half of that white building there. And Porter Street ran halfway between those two white buildings down the back of the moor, and it doesn't exist anymore to my knowledge. Wiped off the map in the 60s. Up here, this is more student accommodation. I think it's called the Gate. Awful. Just imagine fire in there, getting out of that building. It's just all university around here. That's Unison, might be a union. I really just want to give you an appreciation for the destruction they did after the war. I reckon they'll have used emergency powers, they'll have claimed buildings were war damaged and just ripped the guts out of Sheffield. Industry died because they didn't want it in the UK anymore, and that must have been planned a long time ago as well. In 1948, guys were coming back from war without jobs. Women wanted to carry on working in industry, and then we started importing cheap labour. They said it was to rebuild the UK, but people couldn't get jobs at that particular time. So there's always been big plans, and they want cheap labour. So we didn't have the empire anymore, and they created sort of modern slavery instead. And the minimum wage, I tell you, it's modern slavery. You try bringing a family up on a minimum wage, come on. So that's up to Moorhead. You can see the new Grosvenor House, headquarters of HSBC. There's absolutely zero 1950s Sheffield left down here, and I'm assuming all these little streets crisscrossing, and businesses would have run all the way down. The bottom of the moor. With each war comes more control. The First World War, then the Second World War, and now we've gone through an era of lockdown, which was like the Third World War without the bombs. Psychological warfare against the people. And which of those laws will be repealed? Like all the streets they've blocked off in Sheffield were done under emergency laws, and they're still blocked off. But when I used to come out for my lunch back in the early 90s, I can remember seeing buffer girls hanging around in shops and on the streets around here. You can imagine the type of little industries around here, and that's all gone. All clinically removed. But the problem is, it's all right saying we don't want the coal mines and we don't want the dirty industry, but what you're doing is you're sending it to other countries where their health and safety is lower than ours. So what you can't see doesn't hurt you, does it? But to me it's pretty unethical. Think about the people living in China, and you're getting your cheap goods from China. What conditions are they living in? What's their health and safety like? I'd much rather manufacture in the UK cleanly and more control over how we treat people and the pollution that we actually pump out, because there's pretty much zero pollution in Sheffield. I mean, it was a clean air zone in 1959, so we're now buying goods from China and they've got coal-fired power stations, smog everywhere. So all you've done is you've pushed the problem in the 1950s in Sheffield abroad, but it's because it's not in your own backyard, you're not bothered. That's not everybody, but some people. It's alright, all these people, they buy the goods on Amazon. I can tell you it's absolutely awful working in Amazon. You see little cars pulling up to deliver goods, because I worked at Amazon Prime, which was better than the big warehouses, but it's still very soulless. But little cars pulled up and delivered your goods. I mean, it was all like a bit hit and miss. And how these people in the cars actually make money from delivering parcels is beyond me. I'll tell you something else, all these people want the food delivering to home. Have you ever thought about all these people? They actually have to work in freezers all day, and I did that. I think it was Morrison's, and it was absolutely awful. I lasted about a month, then my back was starting to go. So you're getting this convenience, but somebody else is being very inconvenienced, I can tell you. Down at Jessup Street here. And that just makes me laugh, somebody's cycling there with their kids. Now it's a city centre, seriously, people shouldn't be living in a city centre. It's there for four prime reasons: shopping, commercial, light industry, offices. But people shouldn't be living in it. You're creating, there was only about 10,000 people I think lived in Sheffield city centre, up to 2,000, and now you're filling it with people, destroying what city centre's for, and then you're complaining about pollution. Well, it's not Milan, it's not Bilbao, and it's not Barcelona. We want Sheffield. Now, there was a consultancy done in Oxford about putting zones and stopping people travelling from zone to zone more than 100 times in a year. 90% disagree with that. The council, after consultation, didn't give a fig what the people thought and carried on. So on the 28th of February, Oxford is now turned into 6 zones, and you can't leave your zone for more than 100 times a year in a car. How do you do your work? Come on, seriously, these people. So I'm nearly at the bottom of Eyre Street, coming down to Bramall Lane. can see St Mary's Church there. But anybody who hasn't been in Sheffield, I mean, this has probably changed 50% around this area because so many little businesses have gone that were on the back streets. Even this lot's shut down here, even more student accommodation here. And just here, if I'm looking across to it, you can just see some trees just there. I'm actually stood on Bramall Lane Bridge. So originally Bramall Lane would have come all the way up here and probably been part of Eyre Street at one bit. So under there is a little bridge called Bramall Lane Bridge, and it would have been a really important through road, and it's gone. So that's it, that's just a quick view of Arundel Gate and Eyre Street in Sheffield. What memories does it bring back for you? And I'll leave that with you.